Whenever I make cars, I always start with the side view. So let's press 3 on the number pad and go to the side view. And now that we've already set up our reference images, we really don't need this cube anymore, or at least part of it. So just click your middle mouse and scroll and pan around a little, or orbit around a little, I should say. And we're actually going to get rid of this side that's to the left of this green line here, to the left of the y-axis. So let's just make sure that only one of the vertices on this side is selected, or you can hit A a couple times until nothing is selected, and then press B to box select and select the left side. And we're just going to press X or delete to get rid of it, and just choose vertices with this menu. So now pretty much what we have is just a two-dimensional object, and that's what we're going to start with because it makes it a little easier. You only have to worry about 2 dimensions versus 3, which obviously is going to make it easier to make our model, at least in the beginning. So press 3 to go back to right view, and we're going to get started. We don't need the full size of this car anymore because we already set up our reference images. So select the top, and we're going to drag it down a bit. We're going to try to drag it down sort of below the window, because we're going to extrude this window up to make the roof of the car, as you'll see in a little bit. But for now, what we want to make is the wheels. So in order to make the wheels, or at least the wheel well, which is the part of the car right here, not the wheel itself, but the part of the car that's around the wheel, we're going to hold Control and press R to add a loop cut. It's going to make this purple line. Just click once and it's going to let you drag. If you left click once, it'll let you drag. And drag it over here to where the wheel is, basically. Not the wheel, but the wheel well, the part of the car that's around the wheel. And then we're going to do that again for the other side. So press Control R and add another loop cut. Again, just click once. It's going to let you drag it over, and we'll drag it over to this side of the wheel, and then left click again once you have it where you want it. We're going to be moving this around a little, so just kind of get it close. And we're going to be doing the same thing for the back, so just repeat the process. Control R, make a loop cut, drag it over, left click again, Control R, left click again. So there's that, but we also need the top of the wheel well, so we're going to make another loop cut, but this time instead of up and down, so we're going to make it this way. So press Control R, and you'll see that it's this way. It depends on where your mouse is. You see if I put my mouse here, it's up and down. If I put my mouse over here, it's like this. This is what we want, is like this. So click once, and then just drag it up to the top of the wheel. But you'll see that these are, a different height. The back is a little higher than this one, but we will adjust that in a minute. For now, this is fine. But actually what I want to do is bring this bottom up so that this bottom is actually in line with the bottom of the car itself, not the wheels, because the wheels are going to be separate. So let's press A to deselect everything, and then press B to box select, and click and drag until you select the entire bottom, and just bring it up roughly where the bottom of the car is. And again, we'll adjust this as we go, so just get it close. And now to make the middle of the wheel, and to also make a hole in our model, let's make another loop cut by pressing Control R and make one right here perfectly in the center. And to make it perfectly in the center, just left click once, and as we know, it lets you drag it, but if you right click, it's going to reset it back exactly in the center of these two loop cuts. So that's going to be exactly in the center, which is what we want. And we're going to do the same on the back. Put it exactly in the center. Right click to cancel. Puts it right back there. So to make the hole, it's pretty simple. We're just going to right click this vertex, hold shift, right click this vertex, press X or delete and choose vertices. So now if I press Z real fast to get out of wireframe and then sort of pan around here or orbit around, you can see we have our hole, which is what we want. So let's go back to 3, which is right view, and press Z again so we can go back into wireframe. And what we're going to do is add another loop cut going across here, but now since we have this hole, we're going to have to add a couple, but it's going to basically be the same as adding one. So let's Control R, make another loop cut right here, right click to cancel, Control R, make another loop cut, right click to cancel, Control R, make another loop cut, right click to cancel any movement. So we have that set up, and now what we want to do is try to make this shape a little closer. I mean, obviously we just have a square right now. We want to make this closer to what the actual thing is. So select this vertex by right clicking and select this one with shift right click and drag these down. To bring these closer, if you just click and drag, it's not going to work because they're going to move all over the place. So we're going to have to scale, so press S and Y to scale on the Y axes and drag them closer, try to match the image. And by moving them both at the same time, all you're doing is making sure that each side is moving at the exact amount away from the center, so that the left is going to be, a perfect mirror of the right, essentially. But you'll notice with this car, this one's actually a little closer, according to this reference image. This one should be a little closer, so it's not perfectly symmetrical, at least in terms of this center point. So we will still have to make adjustments, but there are some cars where you will want it perfectly symmetrical. That's why I was just kind of showing you how you would do it if you want to make sure they're perfect. And we'll do the same for these, and it's going to be the same process. SY, bring them in. And you can always move these as you go. We probably will move these. I'm going to move this part of the car since it's a little higher up. Grab these two vertices and drag this up. And grab this vertex and pull it this way a little, because you can see as it comes this way a little with the reference image. So I think this loop cut here, I'm actually going to bring down a little. So let's zoom out a bit. Press B to box select and select these vertices, and then just pull them down. We're going to have to move this a bit, but whatever. We'll do that again. So line this up. Line each one of these up as close as you can. One at a time, just right click to select them. Use the handles to drag them. And then do the same for the back. We're just going to move these into place. Bring these down. Scale these in. SY to scale them. This one's a little more symmetrical. Not quite. Maybe down a little more just to make them in line with these other ones. And if you want to make vertices like perfectly at the same level as another vertex, you can turn on vertex snapping by clicking down here and choosing vertex. And what this enables you to do is, while you're moving it, if you hold control, the control key, and then hover over a vertex, you'll see how the vertices are moving. But if we hover over this vertex, it's going to make all of these the same height as this one, the same Z value, because that's the one we were moving. It's going to make them all the same Z value as this one. And if you really wanted to, you could come up here and check that they're all the same. Just to prove it, you click on this one, You look at the Z value, click on that one, look at the Z value, it's all the same. And that only works because these three were at the same Z value to begin with. If they were different, it wouldn't have worked. But anyway, so go along positioning these, and we'll use vertex snapping a bit later probably. So I was just sort of showing you that now, because it is kind of a cool feature in case you didn't know about it. And this back we're going to have to move up a little. And if you want more detail, which you probably will with this car, I mean, each car is going to be different, as I said before, so you're just going to have to make adjustments. But we're going to add a few more loop cuts with Control R and right click to cancel, and then move these up, make it more rounded, because this car really needs a little extra definition to make it look like this is the way it should be. And to keep things even, we'll do the same in the front. Control R to loop cut, right click to cancel the movement, bring them up, scale them on the Y, make it round. Looks good. You could continue adding more detail, but this is supposed to be a low poly model, remember, so you really don't want to add too much detail. It's not going to be perfectly round, that's okay. That's not really the point. If you were making a high poly model, sure, you would want it perfect, because you know, you don't have any reason not to. You have as many vertices as you want, basically. But for this one, I'm just dragging it down. I'm going to hold Control to snap it to this one, so it's the same height. And this is a little high, bring it down. Okay. So that's the basic shape. This back here is going to be pulled in. And one thing you will notice about cars, you'll notice that I pulled this in further than the actual back of the car, and that's because the side of the car is not as far out as the center of the car. And I'll show you what I mean from the top view. If we go to the top view real quick, you just hit 7 on your number pad. If we take a look at this, we can see that from the side's actually right about here. You know, this is where the side stops sort of and the car starts to curve. But when you get towards the center, it's actually further out than any other part of the car. So this, when you go back to side view, if you hit 3, that's why I pulled these in, because the side of the car is actually further in than the center of the car. And oftentimes, pretty much always, you'll see the same thing with the front. So you'll end up pulling these this way, because the shape of most cars tends to, as you see in top view, also in the front, curve like this. I mean, you might have some exceptions with maybe some older cars or something, but usually this is how cars go. Before we move on, let's go back to side view. And I took a look at this, and if you look at the back, you'll see that these are kind of somewhat evenly spaced out. You see that the distance from here to here is similar. They're not exactly perfect, but they're a lot closer in terms of distance than these are. Like, these are much closer together than, say, these. So what I'm going to do, I know we just lined these up, but at least now I showed you how you can do that. But we're actually going to move these front ones, just the front ones, down a bit, because we want to try to keep this even spacing. It just makes it look nicer, helps keep that nice smooth flow of the car, rather than having, you know, more detail up here and less detail down here. So you kind of want to keep it even as much as you can, just for that reason, to try to keep the detail level similar throughout the car if you can. So we're just going to move these down, and we're going to do the same for this to try to even them out a bit. Scale on the Y to move these out. Maybe up a little. Scale Y. So that's a little better, and you see what I mean. They're kind of more evenly spaced, and you can mess with this as much as you want. Like maybe move these up a little more. I know it's closer to the way we had it originally, but still. That just makes a nicer, smoother curve rather than having a smooth curve up here and then a sharp couple curves right here. That should do it for the wheel wells. Now let's make basically our framework for these windows as well as sort of kind of the doors. Like a lot of times it'll be the doors, but it looks like the doors on this one are kind of right here instead of more where the windows are. So let's just make another loop cut by pressing Ctrl R, and we're going to drag it more over to here. I suppose we can move this later anyway, but what we're going to do is we're pretty much going to extrude this up, and this is going to be used to make the curve for the top of our car. So we kind of want to, like, this vertex is kind of here where it's going to be as this shape curves, and you're going to do the same pretty much right here. Control R to add another loop cut, and you can always add more if you need them or take them away. So for now this is good. And to make it more closely match the side of the car, because you see this is the side of the car right here, all the way pretty much to the back, we're going to have to move these up. So just right click the first one and then shift right click the rest of them and bring them up a little, and then we're going to hold shift and right click this one to deselect it and bring the rest of them up a little bit more, and do the same thing, shift right click to deselect, bring these up. And that's pretty much going to be the shape of the side of the car. I mean, we might change it. I haven't really looked at the actual real life image yet too much, so it will probably change before we're done, but that kind of gets us started. So to make the top of the car, like I said, we're going to extrude these. So this is going to be probably extruded, and we'll just select these for now and press E to extrude and then bring it up, and you'll see how this is going to start to form the side of our car as we move these around. It will start to more closely match the side of the car. And remember what I said earlier, how the center of the car is going to be, you know, bulged out when you're looking at top view, like how it's bulged out like this. But the same thing also happens with the center of the car right here. So the side of the car is going to be lower down, like right here is probably the side of the car, and this is actually the center. This top part is actually the center of the car. But we'll mess with that later. I mean, it's probably not perfect, but it looks like we need some more detail here, so we're going to add another loop cut, Control R, and just place it somewhere. That looks good. And move this a little bit to get the basic shape. We can add more later if we want. And that looks pretty good, I guess. And we'll just bring these in. Like I said, the side of the car is probably more like this. Just guessing. And I'm going to use Vertex snapping on this to even it out. And we'll start sort of shaping the rest of the car. We kind of shaped this right here, made it curved. This is still flat, so let's work on this. And shape it a little. Bring this up maybe. I'm not sure how much bulge the center of the car has. It's hard to tell sometimes from these images. That's why it's good to have real life photos, which we will look at eventually. But this is good for now. I'm not going to get into too much detail because it's all going to change. And I might change this too, but we'll see. Bring this up maybe. Bring these back. Okay. So we get the basic shape. It's starting to come a little bit closer to what a car would look like. So once you are finished with your side view, the next step is, as you know, we're still currently in 2D. We're going to have to make this 3D. And we're going to have to do it eventually, but this is a good time to do it. So from side view, let's just press A a couple times, make sure everything's selected. And we're going to extrude this by pressing E. And what we want to do is make sure these are exactly lined up with the y-axis here. And to do that, I just pressed E, and now you can just right click to cancel it. The easiest way to do it is to go up here to your Y, and make this 0. Whoops, not Y. Control Z to undo that, and make the X 0. So you see it's exactly at 0. For whatever reason it didn't perfectly do it, but now it did, so we're all set. And we're actually not going to need these faces here because it's going to be in the center of our model, and having faces that are not going to be seen is always a bad idea because you're making the computer render these faces even though they're not going to be seen, because this is actually the middle of the car. We're going to mirror this so that you'll see in a second, so that this is actually going to be hidden. So let's press X or delete and choose faces, and it's going to get rid of all of those faces, none of which we needed, and we're going to mirror this. So go over here, right click to move this little menu. I mean, not right click, middle mouse click, sorry, and click this wrench and add modifier, and we're going to add a mirror. As soon as I can find it here, there's the mirror. So to make this look more like, because this is the mirrored part, and it's kind of like faded and it lets you know that it's the mirrored part, but we don't really need the program to tell us that this is the mirrored part. So to make it look real, first of all we're going to need clipping, and all that does is prevent the model from splitting apart. But to make it look real, we're going to click this button, and now it looks like the other side does. And by splitting apart, if I take this off, I'll show you real quick. I'll select this vertex, and you can see how this one vertex is now becoming 2 as I move it. If I right click to cancel this and then turn this on, it doesn't let you do that. In fact, it doesn't even let me move it at all, because this is an important point which is used to determine where this is being mirrored. So anything that's at 0, you can't move it. In terms of the x-axis, you can in Z and Y, but it's not going to let me move it like this, because that's a point that has to be there perfectly in the center unless you split it, but this prevents you from splitting it. Okay, so now if we hit Z, we can see this is our car so far. Obviously, you know, we can do better than this, and we will. But this is the start. This is better than what we had to begin with, just a cube. So if we go back to top, like I said, we're going to hit Z again. Remember, it curves like this, so we're going to make that curve real quick, even though it's not going to look exactly the same. Select these front vertices, these front four, go back to top, and then just pull them out until they're right at the tip. And we're gonna, I selected this one, just press B to box select all the ones that are hiding behind it, and you can see there was actually a whole bunch of them there, but it only looked like there was one. So from top view, by hitting 7, we're gonna move these with this red arrow closer. And we're beginning to get the shape of the car. We will have to add some more detail. We'll get to that. And you can move these out if you want. But I think it's probably better to leave them right here just based on the reference. Like, that's a closer fit as far as right here goes. So we'll just have to add more right there in a minute. Or later on, we shall say. So now we're getting a little closer. You have the shape, okay. But the same also applies to the top of the car and the back of the car. And this looks a little weird, but we'll fix it. We can actually fix it now. Right click this vertex and shift right click this one. Hold Alt and press M and choose at last, and that's just going to merge them, as you see. If I undo that real quick with Control Z, this one is going to merge down into this one. So we're going to start with 2 vertices and end with 1, which will be merged at this point, the last point, because we chose last. Same thing here. Select this one, shift select this one, Alt M, merge it last. So now it's a little less weird. It actually is continuous the way it should be. And this part back here, select all 4. We're going to bring it out just like we did before with the top. Press Z to see what we're doing. Pull this right here. Right click, B to box select. Drag these in, move them out. Try to match the reference without adding too much detail. And that's the start of our car. So far so good. But if we go back into side view, we'll see that there's a problem. We still have some vertices to deal with, and that is the center and the top of the car also needs to be moved up. So let's select those. The center of the car and the roof. Do I want to select those two? Yes, I do. Select these. That's all going to be moved up. So press Z, move it up. You're probably gonna have to move these individually because you can see like these are lined up now, but this is way off. So you're just gonna have to move them individually. We're just moving them up a bit so we can tell which ones are the ones we're dealing with. Line them up with the reference. I'm going to bring these in because based on the reference, you know, this part bulges out more than this, so the top has to come in. And these come up a bit. And in. But we'll add more detail to this later. Obviously, we're going to need more in this area for sure. So slowly you start to get the shape. Starts to look a little more like a car. But one thing we're going to need to do, like obviously the side of the car is not flat like this. So we're going to need to tilt it a bit, angle it some, like it would be, as we can see in our front view. You see how angled this is? We're going to have to do that. So back to side view, I'm actually just going to move this around. Press Z to get out of wireframe. And this front of the car needs to definitely be angled quite a bit more than it is. So I'm selecting basically where the windows would be all the way to the back, the part that we extruded. Back into front view, press Z to go back to wireframe, and we're going to pull them in a little bit and press R to rotate, and try to rotate them until they match the angle in the reference. Reposition them as you need to, just as I'm doing. And we've got the basic angle. I mean, we're going to need to change other stuff as well, because when you look at this, that's not the way the car looks. But so this stuff's going to have to probably come in too. But, details, we'll get to those. Even this is going to need modification. But it looks a lot better. We're getting there. It's progress. And the same will be true for the back. Like, this is not supposed to stick out like this. So we're going to select these two, right click, pull them in. And of course that's not going to be perfect. That's just me moving stuff. And we'll get to the rest of this later. But that's good for now. So we'll save our progress before we go too much farther. You try to save every once in a while so that you can always go back, and if Blender crashes or something, you don't lose your work. But that doesn't really happen to me too much. I know some people have had that issue, but still. So the easy part is done. This is the basic shape of the car, and this usually does not take very long. The hardest part is going to be adding all of the details, and for that we're going to actually need real reference images, like pictures from Google or some other search engine, to help us more accurately get the car. Some people can make it nice and accurate with just these references. Me, not really. So, it's season to taste, basically how much you use these references versus not use them. But I mean, this is going to have to come down. As you can see from side view, this is way too high up. This is too high up. But all of this will be ironed out in time, because it looks like this sort of comes down like this. And I think I want to take these three, and move them into more where the window is. Not really where the window is, but where this curved part is. Match them up a little better, so it's easier when I'm texturing it to see where this window goes. And I'm going to move these as well. Okay. Looks weird. That's okay. This will need to come out. Probably. There's something we're missing here. That's okay though. I'm going to save this for now.